Seems like he, well, make up your mind about whether or not he wanted to stop. They're trying to push him in now through the plastic barriers. Good morning, everyone. We are back on EDSA. This is the southbound, and this is a DOTR static enforcement operation for the exclusive busway. Actually, if I zoom in on the background, you might just be able to see the number of motorcycles coming over the top and then immediately leaving the bus lane upon seeing enforcers. Now generally when you're operating at this time of the morning or late at night, it's a little bit more difficult to apprehend people because of course they're going to change lanes, they're going to put themselves on the outside, they're going to mix with other vehicles. Of course it used to be that you could use the cameras for enforcement, but that's not allowed anymore because of the TRO from the Supreme Court. Look, 1, 2, 3 motorcycles all behind that bus. Is that substandard helmet? Or unauthorized helmet? Not sure. Couldn't tell. They managed to flag down at least one of the riders. It's very challenging when they're all actively trying to evade enforcers. That's the truth. Did manage to block at least one of those riders. There's actually a motorcycle behind this bus now. He should pop out any moment now. I'll keep the camera running. There you go. You can just see him there. Now, he came down so far that it would be more difficult for him to avoid enforcers. In fact, there you go. One of the enforcers pushing him off this side now for ticketing. Now, although motorcycles are the top violator there, it's a busway. It is possible that we could see a car this morning or maybe a van. Because while those vehicles typically avoid the busway when the sun is up, they sometimes become a little bit braver when it's dark because they think there won't be an enforcer there to apprehend them. Look at that, how many riders there are, and then the enforcer has to try and pick out the violator. It was very challenging. And of course, as much as possible, they want to avoid causing any traffic. But the truth is, when you don't enforce the bus lane, it quickly fills up with cars and motorcycles. That's what they saw when operations were suspended before. And if you don't have a working busway, EDSA is going to suffer much worse traffic. Imagine you have one lane being used by the buses, but they can move hundreds of thousands of commuters. Very effective, very efficient. But it only works if it's not full of cars and motorcycles. And that only happens if you have enforcement. And like I mentioned earlier, you can't use cameras for enforcement anymore. While the enforcers are moving in to apprehend what I think is an ADV. Look at that in the background. They did actually manage to apprehend at least one of those riders that you saw a moment ago. They came over the top while they were apprehending someone else. The rider put himself all the way on the other side. He's wearing sleeveless t-shirt. I think he had a red helmet. Passenger obviously on the back. Might be an MC taxi, not sure. There you go, they got him off to the side. I just remembered a comment on my previous video where enforcers were dealing with a stalled car. They were pushing it to the side of EDSA. And while they were doing that, a bunch of motorcycles managed to leave the bus lane. And then the guy was commenting saying, oh look, see, they're choosing who to apprehend, or something along those lines. And I was thinking, what do you expect them to do, right? They're dealing with a stalled vehicle, they need to push it to the side of EDSA so it won't cause traffic. And then you're still getting angry at them that some motorcycles managed to slip through. But if they'd have left that car there causing traffic to go and apprehend the motorcycles, you would have got angry also and said, oh look, they're prioritizing catching instead of removing a stalled vehicle. So it just goes to show that some people can never be pleased. Looks like they're having a little bit of difficulty, so they might ask him for the license over there instead. Sometimes they'll do that and then let him push the bike to the side, or even drive the bike to the side once they have the documents. Our rider suddenly swerved when the enforcers approached him. Look, he's accelerating away. They're apprehending another rider now. I actually asked them whether they wrote down the plate number for the one that ran, and they said yes. So obviously they can issue that for show cause order with LTO. You might go home, right, and say, oh, I got through. I swerved and sped up. I got around the enforcers. Okay, but what happens when you receive the letter from LTO saying you have to attend a hearing at their office? Well, let's say you ignore the letter, right? Okay, how are you going to register the bike now? Because anytime you try and renew the registration, you're going to have a problem. And then if there's a license associated with that vehicle, who knows? They could suspend that also, or put a note on that. So, okay, you got through, but now you have a bigger problem. Stopping at the side of the road and taking a ticket would have been much simpler and cheaper. But that's his decision, right? This lady's crying, and the reason is that they're looking to impound the bike because allegedly it doesn't have a valid registration, and allegedly she doesn't have a driver's license. So there's really nothing they can do, right? Those are two big problems. I think it's really going to be impounded. It is hard to see people cry, but what if she hits someone, right? What if she causes an accident? And then people find out that, oh, you already knew she didn't have a license, that she didn't have a registration, and then you let her continue riding. I heard one of the enforcers say to the lady, what would have happened if you had an accident inside the bus lane? Well, even though she allegedly doesn't have a license or a valid registration, I can tell you what would have happened if she'd have got hurt or killed in the bus lane. The bus driver would be behind bars. That's the truth. Now eventually, with a good lawyer and a dash cam and maybe a little bit of money, he would be able to get out. It's still going to be an absolute nightmare experience for him. And that's without the psychological effects of hitting and hurting or killing a rider, right? So, I don't know what to say. If she wasn't in the bus lane, they wouldn't have been able to apprehend her because she would have just merged in with everyone else, blended in. They wouldn't know, right? They're not going to stop every rider, every driver, just to check if they have a license, if they have registration. It's only because she was in the bus lane that she was apprehended, and that's the time that they found out.